Topping today's news, police investigating 2 homicides as the murder count approaches 70 for the year. Prime Minister Davis says the law is clear on abortion. Some bus drivers have illegally increased bus fares to $1.50. The search and rescue mission for a missing pilot and airplane discontinued. And Devin Charlton into the finals of the women's 100-meter hurdles in Budapest. Good evening, Bahamas. I'm Jcn Saunders. This is your JCN Evening News. It is a pleasure to have you join us. The country's murder count nearly at 70 with 4 months remaining in 2023. A man was gunned down on Sunset Drive in Sunset Park, broad daylight this morning, just hours after police began their investigation into the country's 67th homicide on Tuesday evening. While on the scene of this morning's murder, Chief Superintendent of Police Michael Johnson confirmed that the victim was on bail for multiple offenses.
The police were alerted to gunshots via spot shooter in this area. On our arrival, we discovered the lifeless body of a black male who appears to be in his early 30s with multiple gunshot wounds about the body. This victim is known to police. He is being electronically monitored and is on bail for 4 murders. He is as recent as 2018. He has been charged with several other serious offenses, which he is also on bail for other than the murders. And so again, we appeal to members of this community. We're looking for a small silver Japanese type vehicle, which we believe the suspects were in. As he exited his vehicle, they approached him and opened fire on him, shooting him multiple times, like I said.
He also voiced his concern as there seems to be a recurring trend of individuals who are on bail for serious crimes being targeted. Earlier this year, a male who was shot and killed in the Fox Hill area was on bail for 6 murders. In this regard, Chief Superintendent Johnson says the following.
I'm very concerned. One person killed on our streets is too many. But again, we would do what we have to do. We would investigate. Nobody has the right to take anybody's life, whether they're on bail for 6, 10, or 11 murders. We have to investigate it. Those persons who are on bail, again, have rights, and we would continue to do what we're supposed to do, and we would appeal to members of the public to please assist us with the information to close these matters as quickly as possible.
In charge of the Criminal Investigations Department, CID, of the Royal Bahamas Police Force, Superintendent Johnson is advising individuals who are on bail for serious offenses to stay out of the public's eye.
Well, again, these individuals, they have rights, and they are entitled to bail. But I would advise them to just try to remain invisible. Keep out of the public from being seen, because they eventually become targets. You see it over and over and over again. And we speak to it. The commissioner speaks to it over and over again. We see this with these persons on bail for these serious murders becoming victims.
He also gave an update on last night's murder, which took place sometime around 8:40 p.m. in the area of Deliverance Way off Malcolm Road, where officers met the body of a 34-year-old male of Revival Faith Way laying in the street with multiple gunshot injuries.
Well, last night we received information in relation to a male that was shot off Carmichael Road. That individual was taken to the hospital via private vehicle, where he later succumbed to those injuries. What we know is that he was standing in the street. A male came from bushes just behind where he was standing and opened fire on him. We are currently acting on some good information in relation to that murder, and we hope to have that wrapped up very soon. We got some good intelligence from persons that was in that area, and I again thank members of the public from that area who have reached out to the police and gave us the information to help advance that investigation.
Police are appealing to members of the public, if you have any information on these murders, to contact the police anonymously at 328-TIPS. That's 328-8477. Nearly 5 hours prior to last night's murder, a 37-year-old male was shot multiple times while in the Nassau Village area. At last reports, the victim was in hospital in stable condition. Police reports indicate that sometime around 4 p.m., the man, on arrival to his home on Spruce Street, was approached and subsequently shot by an unknown male who emerged from nearby bushes. Police are aggressively investigating these incidents and are appealing to members of the public once again, if you have any information that can assist the police in identifying and locating the suspects involved in these incidents, to contact the police. You can dial 911-919, call CID, or you can call Crime Stoppers anonymously. Once again, that number, 328-TIPS, 328-8477. In the aftermath of the 11-year-old girl who was given abortion pills by her mother after being impregnated by the mother's 45-year-old boyfriend, Prime Minister Philip Davis, in response to the question of whether Bahamian abortion laws should be adjusted to consider such circumstances, responded with the following.
To achieve what? The laws are on the books. Abortion is still a crime. Rape is still a crime. And carrying very hefty penalties. I mean, I don't know what instance that you think, or what mischief, what other mischief, that the law does not cover in respect to what you ask. The laws are on the book. It's heinous. The penalties are stiff, and once the laws are applied, at the moment I don't see a need for any amendment, because the laws are in place. That's why the persons involved were able to be charged.
Asked if the government considers how a rape victim would be affected, the Prime Minister, a veteran attorney, said it is a medical matter and that ultimately their response to any medical situation would be a personal choice for a rape victim.
That would be a medical matter for me to consider. For me, where the issue of abortion is a highly emotive one, it's a personal choice, and we leave that to the persons who get impregnated. And I don't want to impose my views on a personal choice. But suffice it to say, I will support this personal choice of anyone in respect to these matters.
In the meantime, Minister of National Security Wayne Munro said he expects police to thoroughly investigate the rape of the 11-year-old girl as well as the abortion. The mother and the boyfriend have since been formally charged and remanded to prison until they return to court for their next date appearance in January of 2024. The Davis administration is coming under fire from the official opposition after details surrounding the collapse of the trusses for a roof at the R.M. Bailey High School and the subsequent revelation that there was no formal contract for those repairs. We hear more on what the opposition has to say in this next report by Lissy Bastian.
Opposition leader Michael Pintard is condemning what he calls an astounding collection of mistruths and deflections by Prime Minister Philip Davis and Works and Utilities Minister Alfred Sears, who both came to the defense of a contractor responsible for constructing a lunch pavilion on the campus of the R.M. Bailey Senior High School. What is now another controversial matter for the governing Progressive Liberal Party and the Works Minister, the Free National Movement is demanding accountability. Just this past Friday, the Ministry of Works released a statement in reference to the incident titled R.M. Bailey High School Lunch Pavilion Roof Collapse. However, both the Prime Minister and the Minister on Sunday, during a tour of schools undergoing repairs, said a roof did not collapse, but instead its trusses. Now, in the ministry's statement, information not intended for public consumption was also included, with ministry officials requesting that the media not release the same, including an admission that the contractor had no written contract nor risk or liability insurance. However, Prime Minister Davis confirmed that information and said the contractor had a verbal agreement that was to be reduced to writing. He also noted that the contractor, Anthony Roker of A&M Construction, decided to self-insure until all of the I's were dotted and the T's crossed. Well, Mr. Pintard is calling on the government to provide evidence that the Tenders Committee did its review and approval. The F&M leader is further demanding that the government provide a full accounting of all projects for which there are only oral contracts in place. The F&M leader says the fact that the contractor had an oral contract for a project that would be valued in the hundreds of thousands of dollars at minimum is simply rubbish. Citing the Procurement Acts of 2021 and 2023, Mr. Pintard notes that it is required that a project of this size be approved by the agency's Tenders Committee or the Public Procurement Board, depending on the contract value. Add to that, he says consideration would not be given to an oral contract proposal, nor would a waiver of the requirement for proper insurance coverage be approved. By law, no procurement contract can be awarded unless the process prescribed by law is followed. Anything else, Mr. Pintard says, is an illegal contract. The opposition leader contends that the issue of so-called self-insurance held by the contractor is almost certainly a grand fiction concocted on the spot by the Prime Minister. Making reference to a fire that destroyed a dormitory at the Bahamas Agriculture and Marine Science Institute, or BAMSI, back in 2015, Mr. Pintard contends that Prime Minister Davis, who was the Minister of Works at the time of the fire, knows well that the standing government policy is that all public projects of this type require express insurance coverage. The contractor, he says, has no option to take on the risk unless the Prime Minister can provide evidence that the contractor has established a separate legal entity appropriately funded to provide insurance for the contractor's business interests. Then no self-insurance exists. The opposition leader is questioning how many other illegal contracts are currently in place with nothing more than a handshake and a wink. Bahamians, he contends, cannot have a renegade government that believes that it is above the law and can do as it pleases. If there are more examples of this wanton recklessness and illegality, Mr. Pintard says, then the responsible minister must resign. The F&M leader says, enough is enough. For Jcn News, I'm Lissy Bastian.
Thanks so much for that report, Lissy. Bus drivers increasing their fare costs prematurely could possibly face the tribunal if reported, according to the Minister of Transport and Housing, JoBeth Kobe Davis. Mrs. Kobe Davis was questioned on some bus drivers illegally raising their fares from $1.25 to $1.50. According to the Transport Minister, the increase in bus fares will have to be set by the Cabinet, then presented to the public.
No, actually, I think we already provide clarity through a press statement where the effective date of that bus increase has not been set by Cabinet as yet. And we've actually requested opportunity to have a public dialogue. And so we will be organizing a few public town hall meetings, I think about 2 or 3 of them before the end of the year, so that we can get an approved effective date for the fare increase to come into effect. That should not be the case, and if that is happening, then they should report it to the Road Traffic Department so we can put it before the tribunal.
President of the Bahamas Unified Bus Drivers Union, Rudolph Taylor, spoke with Jcn News, insisting that he does not want to get into a back and forth with the Transport Minister. However, Mr. Taylor says he was informed that the new bus fare would be gazetted and then the public notified on those increases.
Our town hall meeting was supposed to happen in the month of April, and it never happened. And so after I was told to advise the bus drivers, operators, as well as franchise holders, as to what was in place with the government as to what they're going to do, I went ahead and I proceeded to do such in the month of April. the drivers were expecting by now an increase. And so because of this, some may feel that either the union was lying or the minister was lying as to why we came and told them what we said. And so because of this, they felt that as if it's just he say, she say, back and forth. Now, I don't know exactly what the stance is or what to say on the situation, but the minister should and could give a clarity on it. She said it's going to be a few town hall meetings. I don't know when the eggs went up, if they had a town hall meeting, as to say eggs went up to $9, but 20 was what is agreed upon, and we have to settle for it because that's what she said.
Inclusive of women occupying key positions in the cabinet and throughout the government. While we acknowledge this progress, we still want to see more political and government participation, and we know that achieving this requires active leadership and thoughtful policies. We also know that despite the great strides which have been made by women in the workplace, women can occupy more of the top spots in our private sector corporate structures. All of our children should have an expectation that their hard work, excellence, and achievements will be evaluated fairly.
According to the leader of the bus drivers union, the increase in fares was supposed to happen from April this year, having called for a rise in bus fare since 2008. Mr. Taylor says he is still waiting to be informed concerning the recent town hall meetings.
I guess for the operators and the franchise holders and drivers, I guess they don't incur costs when it comes to fuel, tires, maintenance, and so forth going forward. We understand that we got a waiver of the licensing and inspection fee, and we appreciated it. But that's the buck just stops there, and that's the question what members are asking. And when we had the discussion with the minister, we made it aware that persons are appreciative of the busing industry, and because of this, even those who do not pay the $1.25 or the $1.50, some of them go as far as even this recognized supply that the drivers are in. They pay even more. Some are comfortable paying $2, some even $3. And that's something throughout our meetings we discussed. And so it was only that after this so-called 25 cents popped up that it went viral. You see what I'm saying? So that's where we are at this crossroad now.
Mr. Taylor said although bus drivers are appreciative of the relief they have received so far from the government, he says the price of diesel has increased, a frustrating point for bus drivers. And finally, in this segment, demolition of the old Hotel Corona on East Bay Street began on the weekend, but concerns have been raised about safety hazards regarding that building. And as a result, the demolition process is now in limbo. On Tuesday, Senator Randy Roll, who is in charge of the Downtown Revitalization Project, said the current owners of the building, identified as one of the initial 9 buildings set for demolition, are still working out things with the government concerning proper procedures for the demolition.
Securing the proper permits. That was a demolition that was started on Sunday. But Ministry of Works is dealing with that as we speak. You know, to my understanding, that's an issue that was brought up, and the Ministry of Works, I understand, is taking care of that, dealing with the individuals responsible right now. So they're in communication with them, getting proper guidance and direction as it relates to that.
The demolition of derelict buildings in the downtown area began earlier this month as the government looks to replace some of the dilapidated buildings with green spaces. We'll take a break here. We'll be right back after these commercials.